All right, Matt Miller is here, one of the best draft experts around. I will say, listeners of this show know. So Pete Thamel was on this show 8 days ago, and he told me he had just recorded with you, and that you had said that Cam Ward would have been QB4, QB5 last year,
right around there,
something like that. Yeah, and then I told my producers on the show that you're banned from this show because of Cam Ward.
And here I am.
And then I reconsidered. You did such a good job on the ESPN coverage. I said, you know what? I'm going to unban him. Everybody makes mistakes.
The quick ban. I appreciate that.
The ban that you didn't know about. Right, it was reversed within
that I hadn't heard about yet.
Yeah.
I did like Cam Ward, though. I know you're a big Miami guy. Yeah. I like Cam Ward. And I'm excited about him in Tennessee. I wish they did a little bit more to surround him with some playmakers, but you can't feel every need of one draft. So
I agree with that. I don't really love the Florida kid all that much.
He's fast.
Hopefully. Sure. The Lockett pick, maybe they give him something, just a veteran to kind of teach kids what to do. I don't know. I honestly have no idea about Restrepo. I just think there's no precedent for somebody that slow.
Right. Even if you say he plays faster, right. The time's the time. And it was a pro day time.
I would take a flyer on him, only in the sense that he just gets open. He sits down in the zone. He knows he's sure-handed. Like, I would take a flyer on him, just see what he sees. If I'm not to put anybody on blast here, the agent should not have let him run at the pro day. They should have they should have said, "Oh, sorry, he's got a thing. Oh, sorry about that. No, he's got a conflict. Sorry, it wasn't in his calendar. He forgot to show up."
Right. He has a ingrown toenail. Something. Like something. You don't want to be like, "Oh, it's soft tissue injury," but just something. Something small that it's going to be fine. Small. If he hadn't run at the pro day, I had a 4th round grade on him.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
but he got a guarantee.
To your point, could be a steal.
Palisera said he got a bigger guarantee than if he'd gone in the 6th round, which is fine. Some sort of happy ending. I don't know.
Yeah.
Get ready to learn grad assistant, buddy. All right, let's talk about the instant impact guys, because what I love about this draft is seeing what the draft tells you about where a team thinks they are, right? And you look at like a team like Seattle, where they just went athlete. And I don't think they're like, you know what? We have to be great in 2025. You know what? We're going to take some flyers on some ultra athletes and just see what happens. Like, I think there's teams like the Colts have done that in the past, where they take guys who maybe they're more athletes than football player at this point. Let's see what happens in 3 years, kind of thing. So there's a lot of teams who are trying to win now who do the opposite and say, you know what, we're going to take a running back. We're going to take these polished guys. I look at a team a little bit like the Chargers this year, where I'm like, you know what, I think the Chargers draft is telling us that they think they're going to be pretty good this year. And so with that in mind, I wanted to do the instant impact guys of the 2025 draft. We each brought 3. Maybe we'll overlap. Hopefully we'll overlap, because that means I'm as smart as you on draft. And that guy is like, I'm an idiot on this draft stuff. That's why I have smart people like you, except when you were banned. You have the floor, Matt Miller, your first instant impact guy from the 2025 draft.
I'm going to go Jaylin Noel, wide receiver from Houston. And Houston drafted all the Jaylins and Jadens in this draft. They went back-to-back Iowa State wide receivers. But I'm going to take the second one, Noel, because I think Jaden Higgins, the first receiver they took, is very, very similar to Nico Collins. That was my player comp for him, was actually Nico Collins. So they're mirror images of each other. I chose Jaylin Noel, though, because Tank Dell had that gruesome, terrible leg injury. There's no timeline right now on when he's going to be back. But he's been so incredibly important to that offense the past 2 years as the speed player, as the guy who's creating something after the catch. There's a huge market for that in Houston. It's something that CJ Stroud has really relied on. And so Jaylin Noel, I think, has a shot. They added Christian Kirk as well in the offseason, but I think we've got a shot here for Jaylin Noel to be that third option in the passing game and to work into that slot role and play ahead of his teammate that was drafted ahead of him. But as far as teams that can win and win big in 2025, I think Noel is one of those right now under the radar players that we're going to be talking a lot about.
I love that. Let me ask you, the Texans have drafted high and they've hit on some really good prospects the last couple of years. CJ Stroud, it goes without saying. Will Anderson, it goes without saying. Derek Stingley. Just knowing what you know about those guys, like how close is a team like the Texans with this draft, in your opinion, to the upper rung of the AFC. We know who's on that, and we know the Texans aren't on that. Like, is that a pathway you see just knowing what you know about these top end prospects?
If the offensive line can play well, yes. Yeah, that's the only issue, right, is the offensive line. And they drafted Ariante Ursary in the second round. That I didn't have him as a second-round player. I thought he was closer to a third. So it was a little bit of a reach for me. But they have veterans up front now. Cam Robinson, Laken Tomlinson, I think Trent Brown at right tackle. So they've kind of put a lot into, we're going to put a Band-Aid on the offensive line for a year and hope that we can get by. But you mentioned all those star players. They just paid Stingley. They're going to have to pay CJ soon, and they have to pay Will Anderson really at the same time. So they're getting to that window of, okay, you're almost out of the rookie window with those two star players. You're going to have to start paying folks. So it does feel like they've got 2 more years before they have to pay CJ and Will, and then we'll see how they have to shuffle this roster, basically.
But you got to start planning for it. That's the thing that I think people don't understand. Like, you have to start clear when you're going to sign a guy. By the time CJ Stroud signs, you're looking at $65 million for that level, or $60 million is the starting point in that negotiation. So you have to start clearing the decks like 18 months out. Like Brett Veach once told me that the moment he saw Mahomes in practice, he was like, well, all right, we got to start planning for a mega contract. Like, Alex Smith was still there, but right. Like, the window is always smaller than you think. And so having that top end talent eventually, I always joke about this, Matt, but the team that got most screwed in the rookie wage scale thing was the Lions, because they had Matthew Stafford, Calvin Johnson, and Ndamukong Suh. If they had hit on them, everything would have changed in the rookie wage scale era and all that stuff. But say that comes in 07. They get to have those guys in some way, shape, or form, at least 2 of the 3 at every time being cost controlled. Like that, they would have been a dynasty, right? But absolutely, the flip side of that is that you only get that small window, and the Texans need to take advantage very soon.
And to that point, I hadn't thought about this, but drafting wide receivers, which now make $40 million a year, it's almost like you are starting to pave that road to where, not that Nico Collins is maybe going to go anywhere, but okay, if we can hit on Jaylen Noel and Jaden Higgins, maybe we're only paying 1 receiver a lot of money. And now we've got 2 guys who are cost controlled for 4 years. That's I'm going to file that away. See, you do know this draft stuff really well.
There we go. The other draft thing I know is that 90%, not 90%, that's overstating it. Half of all 2026 way too early mock drafts are just guys looking at recruiting rankings from 2 years ago. And that's probably fair. Like, oh, this 5-star. I noticed this a couple years ago. I don't want to put anybody on blast, but I noticed this a couple years ago, and I'll just say it. From a Miami perspective, maybe 2 years ago, there were tons of mock drafts for the year before that came out like April of 2 years ago. And all of them, not all of them, but a lot of them had Leonard Taylor and James Williams going in like the top 20 picks because they were both 5-stars. I watched a lot of Miami football. You cannot watch those 2 players at that point and say, and one was undrafted, one was 7th round. But I'm sitting there going, man, a lot of these guys just looked at 24/7 from 2 years ago, and you see it all the time now. You see all the time. You see some of those. I mean, the real tell is some of these, like Alabama takes lots of 5-stars, lots of high 4-stars. Okay. And by the time sophomore year comes around, Saban and now Kalen DeBoer, he's done the rankings. It's called snap count. It's called what is he on the field in crunch time, all that stuff. But then a lot of times in the mock drafts, you'll see it revert back to this guy's a 5-star. Now, the 5-star thing is important in that teams are more likely to take a flyer on you. A Eagles team is going to say, we'll bet on the athletes, but that doesn't mean that so just so everybody knows, the 24/7 ranking has 32 5-stars. It's supposed to be the 32 first-round picks 3 years from now. And it is alarmingly accurate overall.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
But there are tells that you do not watch college football if you just take some of those 5-stars and put them in the first round.
It's probably bad for my job, what I do for a living. I don't follow recruiting at all. I just don't. And I think it's because I'm from Southwest Missouri, where we don't have we don't have those powerhouse schools here. And even like I'm an hour from the University of Arkansas. Yeah. It's not LSU. It's not Ohio State. So I've never been a high school recruiting guy. I've become aware of it. If someone's like, oh, this prospect was the number 1 player in his class or something, I'll absorb it, but I've just never been a recruiting guy.
It's really interesting for a guy to be wire to wire. Like Travis Hunter, even though he went second overall, was the best athlete in the country for 3 years. He was going to go to Florida State. He flipped to Jackson State, but he was always great. And that is becoming, with the portal, increasingly rare because the portal is creating superstars. Because you're going from, I was actually thinking about this morning. Let's say you're at, Cam Ward is kind of an obvious example, so I'm not going to give that. But there's certain guys where it's like they're at G5, they're stars, and if they played to the level of competition 15 years ago, think about someone like Khalil Mack, right? If Khalil Mack got to go to Penn State from Buffalo in his last year, and obviously he was still a top 5 pick, he would have gone first overall because we would have seen it. He would have gone over Clowney.
Yeah.
But we didn't get to see it. And we said, oh, the level of competition. You played that one game against Ohio State. We all had to extrapolate from that. That's changing the draft because the portal is removing doubt. So that's it.
No, absolutely. It's made my job easier.
Yes.
But at the same time, it has diluted the talent pool. There's not as many. Yeah. This is something I'm going to do this week is how many like quote unquote small school players got drafted this year? And is that number up or down? Because I have a suspicion that, a lot of those guys are going up in a level in talent. Yeah. So, yeah.
The William Ameri kid is one of them. Yeah, there was a kid from like Middlebury or something who was an undrafted free agent.
Alabama A&M had one.
There you go. There you go. All right. My first one. I'm going to go with Jahdae Barron. Part of this is that, it's funny. I was reading the ESPN, I guess it was Jeff Legwold, the analysis of every pick, and he was saying part of this with Barron is Vance Joseph's going to figure out how to use him. He has enough versatility to line up a corner, safety, slot, outside, and as a dime linebacker, according to ESPN, probably according to Matt Miller as well. He can kind of do everything. And I'm already looking at this Denver defense where you're going to be able to fit in really easily. There's playmakers all over the place. Sean Payton is a really good coach. Vance Joseph is a really good defensive coordinator. Payton still has old school training camps where he's going to get up to speed really quickly. I'm having a hard time, Matt, seeing Barron not being an instant impact star and that Broncos team winning a bunch of games this year.
So people could probably see the Texans helmet right here. So this, I'm going to call the homer for this. This was my next pick, was Jahdae Barron.
Oh, yes.
I was ready to go. So there's our overlap. Also, like to add on to your point, you have the best corner in the NFL on the other side, Patrick Surtain, who is just amazing. He's a vacuum. So now you're going to throw at Jahdae Barron, who won the Thorpe Award and had 5 interceptions last year. He was a top 10 overall player for me. I absolutely loved him. And I wasn't high on him coming into the season. He's one of those guys. He moved to the outside last year and answered so many doubts about his game to where thought, man, he might be a slot only guy. But I think he has some Trent McDuffie level skills or Cooper DeJean, if you want to go that route, of someone that does. I mean, he can play 3 or 4 spots on the back end with 4.4 speed. And he's not incredibly long armed, but he's fast enough to make up for that. Mm-hmm. And I loved the fit. And I think that's my favorite thing post-draft to talk to people about is we have our pre-draft rankings that are very generic, but then you get to see where a player lands and you can get more excited or less excited about their future based on where they land. And he was one of my guys that, even though he was ranked really highly, the fit works so well for him. And you have a loaded secondary there now. So I think it's pretty easy to, I don't know, they'll have rookie of the year numbers, but he could because he has the ball skills and he's in such a great situation and they've got some dudes who can rush the quarterback. They've got guys who can control the line of scrimmage and that whole secondary is good. Brandon Jones is a playmaker. Hufanga is a playmaker. Riley Moss is really good. So I don't know who you pick on. And if people try to pick on the rookie, he's proven he can make plays.
I'm looking at defensive rookie of the year odds. They're already out. Tell you what, the devil moves fast. Vegas moves faster. Offensive rookie of the year, Genty is number 1, obviously. Defensive rookie of the year, Abdul Carter, number 1. Travis Hunter, Jalen Walker, Micah Williams, Mike Green, Shamar Stewart, Mason Graham, Jihad Campbell, James Pierce, Malaki Starks. Jahdae Barron is plus 2,200 for rookie of the year. Ooh. So that is like 10th. That's a nice little. I don't bet on football, but that's a nice little.
I'm banned. I'm from your show and betting. I'm banned. So
I don't bet on football. My whole thing is I bet on golf, and I just know how upset I get when someone misses an 8-footer to cost me like $80. Yeah. That the idea that I could bring that to football, where I have to deal with people in the game, coaches, like hypothetically, I'm sitting down at the owners meetings and like, if Mike McDaniel cost me $60 last year, I'd be like, what was that, bro? Instead, I have no emotion. I get to just call it as I see it. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's like, well, number one, our bosses won't let me do it. But secondarily, it is the idea of you don't want to put a financial attachment to a player, or
correct
anything like that. I don't know how betting markets even work. I don't know if those could be influenced by mock drafts and things like that.
I don't know. I mean, obviously you have the drafting, but there's low limits on that, whatever. But the biggest thing, I don't know. Like the betting thing is very murky, and who should be able to influence what or whatever. It's just probably just best for us to avoid it. That's my take.
I'm a Royals fan, so like I think I put $5 on them to win the World Series, and they're terrible already. So
you put five. No, if you bet on a sport you have nothing to do with, that's great. I do that with golf. Like I don't know, I'm probably never gonna meet Rory. That'd be weird if I did, but I can put $50 on him. Yeah, it'd be great. I could say, hey man, you won me $8 on a $50 bet. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I can get a sleeve of golf balls because of that. I appreciate you.
Yeah, you could get half of a polo at the Masters.
I mean, I with the way of inflation, it's gonna be a while. It's gonna be a while before I can afford a polo at the Masters. All right. So real quick, who would be your guess for Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year next year?
Oh man, I like Abdul Carter if he gets the snaps. Just with what they have with Burns, I'm not a big Thibodeau guy. I think he's probably situational at this point. But when you have Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns, you're gonna get some ops, and especially if they play him at some off-ball linebacker on first down, we might see some picks, things like that would boost the numbers. But they made me pick for a show that we did, and I cheated and took Travis Hunter as both.
Well, here's my thing:
offensive and defensive.
Yeah. No, but what do you do? Like if he primarily plays offense but gets 4 interceptions?
That's exactly what I said. I swear to God, I said the exact same thing.
What's he going to do? What are they going to vote? What are the voters going to do?
I'm not a voter. I don't know if you are.
Neither am I. No.
Okay. I don't always think of our voters as like highly intelligent people sometimes. So I said, do we really think that our voters are going to be able to separate what he does on defense or what he does on offense when voting? Like, are they going to be able to say, let me just only focus on what he did on offense and ignore the 4 interceptions he had, or vice versa? I'm not going to give them that much credit. So I clearly cheated by choosing him as my answer.
4D chess here. All right. So we both had Barron. I'm going to talk about Malaki Starks next.
Are you serious?
Are we overlapping again?
Yes.
This is great. I'm so happy. It means we're good here. But at least we don't have the one that we overlapped on, so I can do that.
Yeah.
So let's just go through it. This is via ESPN. Only player in FBS last year to play at least 1,500 snaps at safety and 500 snaps at slot cornerback over the last 3 seasons. Obviously, we know what Kyle Hamilton did in that defense last year.
Yeah.
When he moves to deep safety, it becomes the best defense in football, full stop. Now you're going to get a full season of that. Now you're going to get flexibility where you can play Kyle Hamilton to that deep safety where he obviously thrives, but then you can also just start playing a chess piece. Starks can handle some stuff on the back end. I don't want to do this. It's April 29th. It's 11 a.m. hour, Matt. I kind of feel like the Ravens are going to win the Super Bowl.
Ooh. I like that. I mean, they had a damn good draft. So I can see it.
Let's go through it. Let's start with Starks, then we'll go through all the picks that you like.
Yeah.
Take me through Starks.
So I wrote about this actually on Thursday night. Kyle Hamilton, when he moved to deep safety, that whole defense changed. And it's interesting because I thought Malaki Starks was better as a deep safety in 2023. 24, Georgia moved him down to the slot. And I thought he had some learning curve issues. But now you have that versatility. If the Ravens want to run, 2 deep, good luck because both those safeties are so good at what they do. But they also both come up and play so well in the box that now you do have flexibility. If they want to put Kyle back into the box, you've now drafted a player who excels as a deep safety and vice versa. You can almost just move those guys around. I don't know that I think early on Malaki Starks got talked about as a nickel corner, Brian Branch type guy.
Yeah,
I don't know that that's exactly who he's going to be. I think he is a little bit more of a true safety, but Baltimore evaluates players as well as anyone. So in the second round, Mike Green's a tough player to talk about, right? At the combine, he disclosed that he had been accused of sexual misconduct twice, once in high school, once at Virginia, and he left. Virginia, goes to Marshall. It's tough, right? I'm not in those interviews. I don't have access to that information. So I just graded him on the tape. On the tape, he was a top 20 player in this class. And so if Baltimore is comfortable with his background, and obviously no charges were ever filed or haven't been filed, nothing's come from that. If they're comfortable with that, they got a top 15 player at the back end of the second round and filled what I thought was their second biggest need, which was for a speedy pass rusher, because they've missed on some guys, Ojabo, Owe, they've missed, and which is rare for them. But Green fills that second biggest need for a defense that we saw them really struggle at times last year to get to the quarterback.
I agree. And then they took the LSU offensive lineman,
Emory Jones.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like we've had a lot of Emory Joneses. That's why I just a lot of Emorys in this world, a lot of Jaylins, a lot of Emorys. And then they think he could maybe compete in training camp for at least one of the spots. It just feels like, the Ravens very, very rarely miss. They just think everything through. They don't panic. And again, I talked about this with the Eagles a couple of days ago, but good teams beget good drafts because you're not panicking. You're not saying we have to get this guy. We have to fill a need here. When you're a good team, you end up, the phrase I always heard, you act like you run the team for 100 years. And when that's happening and no one's going to get fired, nobody's on the hot seat, nobody trying to take a quarterback because it resets the clock. It's always about the next thing. The Ravens simply know what they're doing.
And they really don't reach based on not just on my board, but I know there are folks that compile a consensus board, which I think is fascinating to look at. The Ravens play that really well. They stick pretty close to that value, and which is, again, I don't want to give us too much credit as outside analysts, but it is interesting that they stick pretty true to what everyone else sees. There's not a lot of variance, oh my gosh, it's like Tyleik Williams going to Detroit in the first round was by all accounts a reach based on those consensus rankings. Yeah. The Ravens don't really do that. They always are playing with house money in terms of the value. I think my favorite pick for them was Tyler Loop, though. Take the kicker from Arizona, because there's obviously a lot going on with Justin Tucker right now. Outside of the fact that he also hasn't been that good lately. So the idea of, you talk about kicker value wherever you want, but I did think Loop was the best kicker in the draft for as much as we evaluate those guys. And the idea that, okay, we've got a position that may have lost us some games, and we've got a guy that we're going to have to move on from. So I liked the idea to say we're going to make just a clean break and draft his replacement here.
No, again, you know how I feel about the Ravens. I already said it, but it's just a good team that knows what they're doing. All right. My third guy is, thank God you don't have any more guys, so we can't agree on anymore. Yeah. Josh Conerly with the Commanders, so here are the numbers. In the last 3 of the 4 regular season games via ESPN, Jayden Daniels' sack percentage was in double digits, so over 10%. Pressure percentage, 37.5 or greater in those games. And on the season, the sack percentage was around 7%. Pressure rate over 32%. They needed help on the offensive line. We already knew. What's funny, Matt, is that the sack, what's it called, pressure to sack percentage with Jayden Daniels was one of the reasons everyone was trying to get off Jayden Daniels, and hey, he takes too many sacks, whatever. He looked pretty comfortable in the pocket, guys, last year. I don't think that's a concern. I think we're going to be good on Jayden Daniels. That's one thing I think some of the analyst guys missed on going into the season. Okay. Yet getting him upright is the most important thing in the organization. Don't want to have him take any unnecessary hits. Cliff Kingsbury stopped by Adam Peters' office. Did you see this? The note thing? Did you see?
No, I haven't seen this.
Okay. So Adam, right after they took Josh Conerly, Adam Peters took out a lone sheet of paper ripped from what looks like a kid's notebook, right? Like the what would you call it? The binding on the side, what do they call? I don't even know what they're called. All right, the silver little binding, like it was ripped from that, and it just said in pencil, "Stopped by, draft the Oregon tackle. Have a great weekend." This is from the end of last weekend.
So it's right out of draft day. Josh Conerly no matter what.
I also just love Oregon tackle. It's like, we just accidentally took the wrong one.
And there were two in this draft, so I hope they took the right one.
Or Johnny Cornelius is the other one, right? Or
Johnny he went seventh round, so they probably
he's
the right
from Rhode
one.
Island. He's from Rhode Island. He was one of these hot. He was actually a good example. He was a really hot portal prospect who moved over, and he was fine. But I think there would have been more questions had he come from Rhode Island than Oregon. But we got to see it in Big Ten play, in Pac-12 play. But let's put that aside for a second. So I'm looking at this Washington draft, and I'm already seeing the building blocks with Jaden Daniels. Then I see Josh Conerly, who I think is a really high floor tackle. Then I'm seeing Trey Amos, who is many people are talking about as a late riser, potentially getting into that 30 slot that the Bills took the Kentucky cornerback at. Didn't take Trey Amos, obviously. And then Jaylin Lane. There's so many Jaylins. I was like, Jaylin Noel, Jaylin Lane, who's a really good, speedy guy who might be able to return immediately. I don't, you know more than me. Sounds like he's a little bit away as far as being a rotational wide receiver who's on the field a lot. Is that true for his first year?
That's true, but he's the best punt returner in the draft.
Yeah.
So he has value, especially late in the fourth round.
Beautiful. So great athlete who's going to be able to develop into something and give you something already in punt returning. So I'm looking at this Washington draft led by Josh Conerly, and I'm thinking, damn, I don't know how this team stays out of a Super Bowl in the next 5 years.
Ooh, I like that. I love that you're willing to go all in on your Super Bowl stuff. I feel like I need to up my game because I'm always there's some stuff here.
The point is to make it as vague as possible so that no one really knows what you're. And then they'll get to an NFC Championship game, and I go, oh well, it's close.
It's close, and do it far out enough. Like in the next 5 years, people are who remembers that, right? I loved Washington's draft. Josh Conerly was one of my guys. I think anytime you can take an offensive tackle that was a running back in high school, you're ahead of the curve.
The Lane Johnson played quarterback situation?
Exactly. Yeah. It's the same idea. And I met Conerly at the O-Line Masterminds Clinic last summer, and I was floored by him. He was so mature. He was asking great questions, and he knew the work that he needed to do. He knew he needed to get stronger, especially in his lower body, and he was asking these NFL offensive linemen how to do that and how to maybe cover up some of his deficiencies until he got there. So I fell in love with him there. I had them taking Trey Amos in one of my final mock drafts, but I thought Buffalo would take him at 30. So I think if Harrison hadn't been there, Buffalo would have taken Amos at 30. And we would, this player that they got late in the second round, I think he's a starting corner, especially in this defense. His press man ability is so good. He has great length. And I thought he showed in the pre-draft process he has enough speed to turn around with guys. So I know they added Marshawn Lattimore, just like they added Laramie Tunsil, but you bring in Josh Conerly. I like that they've kind of bookended, some of these positions. And with Conerly, I think you could play guard right away. They have Andrew Wiley and right tackle. They have Nick Allegretti at left guard, Sam Cosmi at right guard. I think he could push Allegretti, who I think is a really good backup, a really good swing interior lineman. I wouldn't be surprised if we have a Tunsil Conerly left side. And then eventually he could make that move back to his more natural position once he gets acclimated to the pros and builds some of that lower body strength.
I love it. So it sounds like you're picking the Commanders to win the Super Bowl this year. Is that?
You just went Baltimore, Washington Super Bowl. It's just that
Baltimore
30-mile
this year,
corridor.
Baltimore this year, Washington is more vague, but we'll see. All right, buddy. What are you working on? Where can we read you? Where can we watch you?
Yeah, hopefully you won't be seeing me very much for the next couple months. Yeah, that's the goal, is to not be on TV for a little bit, unless I always say that, and then they ask me, they're like, "Hey, you want to come on tomorrow?" Of course I do. It's so much fun. I'm right now. I just finished my 100 favorite picks of the draft. It will come out on Wednesday. Beautiful. So after that, I'll probably just sit on my back deck and start watching quarterbacks for next year, because I really like doing it. And my son's still in school. My wife works. What am I going to do? I'm here alone all day. What am I going to do? Might as well watch football.
I want to let you go, but have you watched much of Lenora Sellers?
Yes. He's a tank.
He needs DJ Lagway's publicist, because everybody keeps talking about DJ Lagway, who I think has holes in his game and threw some bad interceptions last year. And not like Norris is perfect, but I'm just sitting there saying, why is everyone talking about Lagway and not Lenora Sellers? Now, I think South Carolina lost a lot on defense, but it's going to hurt their ceiling. I kind of feel like South Carolina and Florida are vaguely similar teams in that regard. I don't think either of them are really going to compete for an SEC championship, but I am circling Lenora Sellers as a high pick next year.
Same, and I don't want to get way too far ahead of myself, but South Carolina had a lot of prospects this past year, a lot. And every time I watch them play, you start to cheat and you start to watch him a little bit.
Or Dylan Stewart.
Yeah, Dylan Stewart's he's good. He's good. And Nick Harbor, hopefully he's not running track this spring, the wide receiver who's also a tank. So hopefully, he'll take that time and develop a little bit more as a route runner because he could be really good.
Beautiful. Matt Miller. See you, buddy.
Yeah, see you.